the Renaissance Club in Scotland. The final major championship of the year is just days away, and the two best players on the planet are supposed to be sharpening their games for a battle at Royal Birkdale. Instead, something is about to happen that no one saw coming. Something that will shatter a streak nearly 4 years in the making. The world number one, Scottie Scheffler, a man who had forgotten what it felt like to pack his bags on a Friday, is about to experience something he hasn't felt since 2022. A missed cut. At the same time, the man who is breathing down his neck in the world rankings, Rory McIlroy, is looking the other way. He's on top of the leaderboard, completely in command, yet thousands of miles away from the American comfort zones where they usually duel. This isn't just another tournament. This is a pivotal moment in the most compelling rivalry in golf, a story of momentum, pressure, and the fine line between glory and failure. Because in this sport, the only constant is change, and the old guard is watching the new king stumble. This is the story of a dynamic shift on the eve of the final major. It was a Friday in July at the Genesis Scottish Open, a tournament that had become the traditional final tune-up before the Open Championship. The cameras were rolling, the wind was whipping off the Firth of Forth, and the narrative was set. For Rory McIlroy, it was a chance to find his rhythm on the links, to prove that his game was ready for the ultimate test. For Scottie Scheffler, it was business as usual. Business as usual meant making the cut. He was the world's number one, a man who seemed to sleepwalk through the first 2 rounds of tournaments, only to wake up and destroy the field on the weekend. It was a formula that had worked brilliantly for nearly 4 years. A streak of 78 consecutive cuts made had elevated him to a level of consistency not seen since the heyday of Tiger Woods. But at the Renaissance Club, the formula failed. The wind was up, the course was unforgiving, and Scheffler's game just wasn't there. A first-round 68 was a shaky start, but nothing to panic about. Then came the second round, a frustrating, grinding 72 that left him 2 strokes shy of the cut line. As the sun set over East Lothian, Scheffler's streak was over. It was a stunning development. He hadn't missed a cut since the 2022 FedEx St. Jude Championship, a run of 78 events that spanned 1,428 days. The look on his face was one of pure bewilderment. It felt like nothing was going right, he admitted after the round. I didn't really feel like I played that bad. This golf course can be just tough at times. The sheer shock of it can't be understated. This is a man who hadn't even finished outside the top 25 in a tournament since 2024. He was coming off a season where he'd won a second consecutive Masters green jacket and had been the undeniable king of the sport. Yet here he was, packed up and headed for the airport while the rest of the world's best prepared for the weekend. His competitor, Rory McIlroy, was having no such trouble. While Scheffler fought his swing, McIlroy went out and shot a 66, surging into a tie for the lead. The contrast was stark, almost poetic. As the old guard and the new breed, the veteran and the tyrant, their paths were diverging violently right before the biggest tournament of the year. To understand the weight of what happened at the Renaissance Club, you have to understand the streak that just died. For 1,428 days, Scottie Scheffler had been the most reliable force in professional golf. Every Thursday and Friday, no matter the course, the weather, or the pressure, he was there when the weekend began. He had made 78 consecutive cuts, a run that stretched all the way back to August of 2022 at the FedEx St. Jude Championship. It was the longest active streak on the PGA Tour and the 5th longest in the history of the sport, trailing only legends like Tiger Woods, Byron Nelson, Jack Nicklaus, and Hale Irwin. This wasn't just a statistic. It was a statement of dominance. It was the bedrock of his identity as the world's number one. It was what separated him from everyone else. He hadn't even finished outside the top 25 in any tournament since 2024. He was a machine, and machines don't break down. But in the coastal winds of Scotland, the machine sputtered. And it happened just as Rory McIlroy was hitting his stride. The contrast on that Friday was impossible to ignore. While Scheffler was grinding through a frustrating, mistake-filled second round, McIlroy was in complete control. The Northern Irishman had entered the day tied for the lead after a flawless 5 under 65 in the first round. On Friday, he went out and posted a 4 under 66, a round that featured 4 birdies in his first 8 holes. He was charting a course through the wind with the precision of a master navigator, making the difficult look effortless. He finished the day tied for the lead at 9 under par, sharing the top spot with England's Jordan Smith and South Korea's Tom Kim. The contrast in their trajectories was cinematic. One man was firing on all cylinders, surging forward, while the other was packing his bags. Scheffler's last gasp came on the final hole. Knowing he likely needed a chip-in birdie to make the cut, he instead ended with a bogey, officially extinguishing any lingering hope. The cut line settled at 2 under, and Scheffler finished at even par. He was 2 shots shy of the weekend. That final missed putt from 6 feet for par was the punctuation mark on a stunning chapter in a season that had already been defined by frustration. For Scheffler, this felt different from a bad week. It felt personal. It felt like nothing was going right, he admitted, his voice carrying a mix of disbelief and resignation. He even had a moment on the tee box at the 17th hole, his 8th of the day, where he muttered to himself, "I'm so bad. Just awful." It was a rare crack in the armor of a man who normally shows no emotion, a candid glimpse into the mind of a champion who suddenly couldn't find the answers. He knew he didn't play badly, not in the traditional sense. He just couldn't get anything to fall. The Renaissance Club, with its humps, mounds, and tricky lies, had simply outlasted him. The pressure of the streak, the weight of being number one, and the unforgiving nature of links golf had conspired to deliver a blow that no one saw coming. For Scottie Scheffler, the moment the streak died wasn't a slow fade. It was a quiet collapse on a sunny Scottish afternoon. He had opened with a respectable 68 on Thursday, a score that put him within striking distance. But Friday was different. The wind picked up, the pressure mounted, and the world number one started falling apart before he could even find a rhythm. His second round began on the back nine, and disaster struck immediately. On his second hole, the par 4 11th, he missed a 3.5-foot par putt, a simple look that he'd made 1,000 times before. Then came the par 5 12th, a hole that should have been an opportunity. Instead, his chip out of high grass caught a ridge and rolled back into a bunker. Another bogey. 2 bogeys in his first 3 holes. The machine was already sputtering by the time he reached the 17th hole, his 8th of the day. The frustration had boiled over. His tee shot trickled into a pot bunker, and as he walked off the tee box, the world number one muttered a 5-word confession that summed up his entire week. "I'm so bad. Just awful." It was a rare glimpse behind the stoic mask, a moment of raw honesty from a man who had forgotten what failure felt like. The words hung in the air, a startling admission from a player who had been unbeatable for so long. He managed 2 birdies on the day, but they were canceled out by 2 more bogeys. He couldn't string anything together. He couldn't get the ball close enough to the hole to create meaningful opportunities. The Renaissance Club, with its humps, mounds, and unpredictable lies, had become a puzzle he couldn't solve. The cut line settled at 2 under par, and Scheffler finished at even par. He was 2 shots short. The streak was over. It was a stunning development, but Scheffler wasn't alone. The Scottish Open had become a graveyard for golf's elite. Patrick Cantlay, who had shared the first-round lead after a brilliant 65, imploded with a 74 on Friday, finishing at 1 under and missing the cut by a single stroke. Brooks Koepka, playing on a sponsor exemption and looking dangerous after an opening 66, shot a 74 to finish at even par. Ludwig Aberg, one of the game's rising stars, finished at 1 under, just shy of the weekend. Xander Schauffele, a major champion, was 3 over, 5 shots off the cut, and while the biggest names in the sport were packing their bags, Rory McIlroy was doing what he does best. He wasn't just surviving the winds of East Lothian. He was thriving. He posted a second-round 66, a round that featured 4 birdies in his first 8 holes. He was in total control, a master of the links, navigating the crosswinds with the precision of a surgeon. The contrast was impossible to ignore. One man was heading home. The other was heading into the weekend with a share of the lead, and the stakes were about to get even higher. Because in just a few days, the PGA Tour's final major of the season was waiting. Royal Birkdale, the Open Championship, a stage where legacies are defined. And suddenly, the dynamic had shifted to as the weekend arrived at the Renaissance Club. The story had taken on a new dimension. One half of golf's most compelling rivalry was gone, packing his bags and heading for the airport. The other half was standing at the top of the leaderboard, ready to make his move. But championship golf has a way of humbling even the most confident players, and what unfolded over the final 2 days would reveal just how fragile momentum can be. Rory McIlroy entered the weekend with a share of the lead at 9 under par, tied with England's Jordan Smith and South Korea's Tom Kim. The world number 2 had been in complete control through 2 rounds, navigating the Scottish winds with the precision of a master. His second round 66 had been a statement of intent, a reminder that he was ready to challenge for his second Scottish Open title and carry that momentum into Royal Birkdale. But then came Saturday. The third round was a disaster from the start. The weather was a factor, with fog delaying play and disrupting the rhythm of the leaders. But McIlroy couldn't blame the conditions entirely. He made 3 bogeys in his first 8 holes, a stunning collapse for a player who had been so consistent just 24 hours earlier. The wheels had come off his assault, and by the time play was halted, he was 3 over for the round and had fallen 5 shots off the pace. He had gone from contender to chasing pack in the span of 18 holes. When he resumed the third round early Sunday morning, he couldn't salvage much. He finished with a 73, leaving himself 6 shots behind the leader with just 18 holes to play. The dream of a bounce-back win was fading fast. But if there's one thing McIlroy has shown throughout his career, it's that he never gives up. And on Sunday, he gave the crowd something to remember. The final round started with fireworks. McIlroy made 5 birdies in his first 7 holes, a charge that could have been accompanied by a bugle call. He looked like the player who had dominated the first 2 rounds, the player who had won 4 majors and a career Grand Slam. He picked up shots on the first, third, fourth, and fifth, climbing the leaderboard with the kind of relentless aggression that has defined his best moments. But then came the 9th hole, a bogey. The momentum stalled. He fought back with birdies on 12 and 13, proving he wasn't done yet. But on the 16th hole, frustration boiled over. His approach shot soared well left and into the rough, and the words that followed captured the moment perfectly. "Oh my God," he wailed. "I am so bad at golf." It was the same raw honesty Scheffler had shown just 2 days earlier, a reminder that even the greatest players in the world can feel helpless in the face of this game. He would finish his round with a 64, the equal of his best score of the year, but it wasn't enough. He finished tied for 7th at 12 under par, 4 shots behind the winner. And who was that winner? A 24-year-old from South Korea named Tom Kim, a player who had been struggling for form and confidence for 3 years. Kim shot a bogey-free 64 on Sunday to finish at 17 under, 2 shots clear of Min Woo Lee. He made 3 early birdies to seize the lead, then added more on the 10th and 12th to build a comfortable cushion. When McIlroy was making his charge, Kim was steady, relentless, and unflappable. It was a reminder that while the 2 giants of the sport were battling their own demons, the next generation was ready to seize the moment. For McIlroy, the week ended in frustration, but there was still a silver lining. He had shot 64 on Sunday, a score that proved his game was still there. He had identified what went wrong in the third round and corrected it. As he packed his bags and headed down the road to Royal Birkdale, he knew exactly what he needed to work on. "I just need to hit some balls in a right-to-left wind," he said afterward, his technical mind already focused on the week ahead. The Scottish Open hadn't gone according to plan, but it had given him a warning, and he was determined to heed it. The stage was set for the final major of the year. Scheffler was already at Birkdale, extra time to prepare for a title defense he desperately needed. McIlroy was on his way, carrying the weight of a missed opportunity, but armed with the knowledge that his game was close. And Tom Kim was the new star, riding the confidence of a victory that had ended a 3-year drought. The rivalry between Scheffler and McIlroy was about to enter its most critical chapter yet. The final major of the season had arrived, and with it, the chance for redemption. Royal Birkdale, a legendary links course on the English coast, was the stage for the 154th Open Championship. The defending champion was Scottie Scheffler, the man who had lifted the claret jug just 12 months earlier at Royal Portrush with a commanding 4-shot victory. But the story of the week was already being written before a single tee shot was struck. Scheffler, the world number 1, was arriving with his highest outright odds since early 2024. He was a favorite, but a vulnerable one. He had just missed his first cut in 4 years, and the golf world was watching to see how he would respond. Across the practice range, Rory McIlroy was preparing for his own redemption. The Masters champion had finished tied for 7th at the Scottish Open, a respectable result that included a brilliant final round 64. He was paired with Xander Schauffele and Matt Fitzpatrick in the opening rounds, a grouping that could have been a major championship final on its own. McIlroy had won this championship once before, in 2014, and he was chasing history. A victory at Royal Birkdale would give him 7 majors, tying him with Harry Vardon for the most by a European player. The stakes were monumental. The stage was set for the two giants to finally clash on the biggest stage of the year. But the first round delivered a cruel twist. McIlroy, the two-time reigning Masters champion, was a disaster on the greens. He missed 3 putts from inside 4 feet over the span of 4 holes, a collapse that left him shaking his head and sagging his shoulders. His putting stats were abysmal, ranking 148th in the field and losing nearly 3 strokes on the greens. He shot a 2 over par 72, 7 shots off the lead. The post-round interviews were filled with frustration. There were just too many stupid mistakes, McIlroy admitted. "I'm not too far away," he insisted. "Hopefully I can take advantage of the more benign conditions in the morning and shoot 1 under par and get back in it." But the damage was done. He was already fighting for survival. Scheffler, on the other hand, was steady. He shot a 2 under par 68, positioning himself nicely for the weekend. He had survived the first round, and his game was solid. The defending champion was lurking, ready to make his move.